Hello and welcome to another episode of C-Suite Café, a program where the best brains, the best achievers, the best growers in Nigeria are interviewed for your own sake and for the sake of the Nigerian enterprise. Today, we have a very unique guy. When you start hearing him, I'm sure you'll understand why I say that he's unique. Brain, brown, the whole gamut. He is in marketing, but his interest is in the growth of micro and small and medium enterprises. And I am talking of no other than Kelechi Nwosu, Managing Director and Chief Executive of TBWA, a big and probably one of the biggest advertising agencies in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For giving us your time this evening.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to C-Suite Café.
Pleasure. Happy to be here.
We have a style.
Okay.
And we begin with our quick fire questions.
Okay.
You're not expected to be elaborate, probably one or two lines, break it down, but they are simple, straightforward questions. And then we can lift our coffee.
Yes.
And then move into the cafe business proper.
Okay.
And I'm going to start.
Start.
If you're given two options, family and career, family or career, pick one.
Family.
Reason?
Without a stable family, career suffers.
If you are not doing what you're doing now, what probably would you have been doing?
Oh, a lot. There have been a DJ one. Yes.
What did you talk about?
I would have been a DJ, maybe. That's my interests are varied, but hey, that's a possibility. I might have been a lawyer as well.
Public or private sector?
Private.
Why is everybody in this private sector attaining? Nobody, especially those of you who are very intelligent, highly cerebral, want to remain in private sector. Who are we leaving the public sector for?
Public sector needs a reform. I'm happy to support the reform. I'm happy to be part of that, but I'm not sure I'm happy to be there as a full-time work of any sort. I'd love to be able to consult, help move things, change things, hopefully for our children. But right now, I think private is where I found myself, and I'm happy to be here.
Money or fame?
Fame. Money. Depends on the part of the day. Money actually is better than fame for me. Okay. So it depends on what you mean by fame. Fame has become also
probably
abused.
Help me, my ignorance and breaking.
Okay, so this is not about your ignorance. Fame. So are we talking about social media fame? Are we talking about fame that's based on what you have done? Mm-hmm. If it is fame based on some new thing you've done, something amazing you've done, that's the kind of fame that I prefer. You know, it's not a vanity fame. So I think there's a superficial vanity fame, different from the fame that we all grew up with.
Okay. Circumstances have changed the meaning of fame.
I think so. I don't know, but that's my suspicion.
Well, fame for you. And on these notes, I welcome you formally.
Thank you very much.
To C-Suite Café.
Thank you.
We're back. And I've known you long before now.
Yeah.
And there's been conversations about your interest for and in small and medium enterprises. You even have a platform for that already.
Yeah.
Can we listen to you talk about this?
Okay, it's interesting because the numbers suggest that all of us must be interested in SME businesses. It's 95% of all business. We are SMEs ourselves. So if we're not interested in our businesses in the category, in the broad category which we all are in, then something is certainly not good with us. So that's a primary establishment for me for that sort of thing. But the other thing is that, and there are cliches, is the backbone of any economy, etc., etc. But the most critical thing is our path to independence, to agency, to freedom. Every country that we see that has done well, they've had strong SME companies. Sometimes you can call them cottage industries, whatever you call them, who have done very well in their location, and they then grow. So I think that all of us actually should be in that space where we are putting in our best to support the SME industries. And we've tried to do that in our own, with our SME shop platform, like you mentioned, but that's not all. There's a whole lot more that needs to be done.
I'll go back to
Yes.
your SME shop.
Yeah.
But it just occurred to me that a lot of people use SME support and development as sound bites for enhancements other than SME development itself. The government will come and say, we are doing this for SMEs. On ground, we are not seeing anything tangible to point to that. A bank will say, we are setting aside so and so amount of money for SMEs. On ground, SMEs are growing for lack of funds.
Yeah.
I need you to point to
But
this.
you also need to look at the other side, what they've done. It's got to be a balanced view. There are some governments who have supported SMEs. You know, there are some banks who have supported SMEs.
If you know them,
well, I don't want to advertise for anyone, but you know, there are some banks who have done some good work for SMEs, and they've put in some money and some thinking into supporting the SMEs. Overall, more can be done. Again, it comes back to strengthening the government. SMEDAN is the government agency that is responsible for SMEs. I'm sure you know this.
I know that.
Good. Now, you need to look at the non-governmental organizations, the Ford Foundations, all of the big multilateral organizations who support SMEs as well. These guys, the MasterCard Foundation, etc. So there are many of them. Then you've got to look at the SMEs themselves, which is how are the SMEs organized? Look at Faith Foundation. I think we talked about it.
Yes.
What they've done for the SMEs in the country. So there are people who are working to make sure that SMEs are getting better. But we must challenge government to ask questions about accountability, questions about measurement. Are they getting better with access to funds? Are they getting better with skills? Are they getting better with tax easements? What is it that government is packaged on a consistent basis to allow the SMEs grow so that they can scale? Because as they grow, they become larger corporations, then they can scale to bring value to both the government and to the people. So that it needs to be challenged, it needs to be talked about. But I will not dismiss every effort as not being valid, as not being helpful.
You know, when we talk about SMEs, especially in Nigeria, I look across the oceans to China.
Sure.
I don't think Chinese companies have big corporations. If they have, it's just...
There are a few big corporations. There are more than... They've got quite a number.
But China is what it is to the world today. China has become the production line of the whole world. Yeah. Through their SMEs.
Sure.
What did they do differently that we can learn from?
I think that, and it's interesting you talk about China and even India.
Yeah, increasingly India.
Government support, access to capital is critical. It's been critical to them. Skills, specialization. I understand that in China, they have clusters of industries in different parts of China. Yes. If you're doing electronics, you're in one part.
The Guangzhou,
exactly.
The Xin,
if you're doing computer stuff, you're in one part. And there's an ecosystem, a cluster of an ecosystem supported by government policies. And they then worked hard to also protect their industry. China protected their industry. Yes. China did protectionist things, even if the rest of the West have been fighting with them over subsidies. Yes. But you know they've done real protectionist things. Yes. Even India has done that. You can't bring this, you can't import XYZ into China at a particular time. You can't, without huge taxes. So there was a plan to make sure that those SMEs, and they grew. And they've grown well. And what they did was also, when you look at a supply chain of a particular product, they have it running in the same geography, in that ecosystem. Yes. So there's a small for people to chop. There's small, you're doing, so if you're making chips or you're making a particular product, You have your supply chain around you. So it's a plan. We need to have a plan. So just generally talking about supporting SMEs without a plan doesn't quite work. You've got to have data. You have to have a plan. Which of the SMEs are likely to scale in the country?
And
Which
in
of
which
the
part
ones,
of the
and in which
country?
part of the country? Okay, it's interesting. Many years ago, and this is a bit of an aside. My boss, which is Mr. Wokoya, I remember you know him, our chairman, and another gentleman called Niyo Motosho, and a guy called Professor Kyle Obono. We sat together, and we did a paper. It talks about the Nigeria that works. And what was it? It was a simple gearing system. How do you have Nigeria as a system of gears? You know, remember your physics.
Yes.
And these gearing systems are connected by pulleys. You know that, like a watch. You know how a watch works.
Of course.
So if you
Balance wheel.
So think about Aba as a place that's making leather works. Aba makes a lot of leather works. Think about Kano and as a place that's providing raw materials. Think about it. Visualize a pulley that brings Kano investing in Aba and Aba investing in Kano, so that the raw materials from that value chain comes to Aba, and then the finished product and investment also goes to Kano. That's how you do it. And in this country, we are blessed with those sort of opportunities where we've got different things. And it doesn't have to be Aba and Kano. It can be Aba and Akwa Ibom. It can be Aba and, just how do you do linkages in such a way that we are productive? And then small firms can grow. And SMEs are a large number. Whenever people think of SMEs, a lot of us visualize micro and small, the cottage. No.
A man with a shop on the
That's not
street.
all. Those are micro.
Yes.
The medium is large. Many of us are in that space.
In fact, most of the things that come from actually belonging to the nano category. Not
There's
even micro.
nano, exactly. There's nano, there's micro, there's small, then there's medium. So a lot of the companies we think of in this country as large and not large are in the medium space. Many of us might be even in the small space. If you look at the number of people, there's a certain classification based on number of people and your turnover. So I think there ought to be much more studied view about what will make SMEs make our economy rise in a way that is authentic to us. Not authentic to anybody else, but authentic to us.
We are speaking SMEs in Nigeria, and most people are thinking about commerce and this.
Yeah.
What is it that is limiting us, and how can we change the conversation to make sure that we are much more adventurous?
So I think a linked conversation, a coherent service. So just give me anything you want us to make here, even if it is just software, for instance, even if it's just an app, whatever it is. In everything you're making, there are different parts to it. If we motivate enough people, they will produce, they will go and be entrepreneurial in those places because there's a motivation, there's an opportunity. Part of what you have with NAFTA, the American agreement, is that there were open borders between Mexico, United States, and Canada. So I saw something that someone did off CNN or so, and a car made in Detroit travels, so they make some parts in Canada, they come back to be finished in America, they go across the border. These are different companies making those things. An ecosystem is what makes business. Very often we are allowing people to go it alone. So if you go to think about Aba, for instance, Aba is known for 3 major things, okay? Yeah. There's leather works, there's textile, and there's fabrication. The fabrication part is very not well known, it's the best kept secret. So they make badges, they make tankers, those tanker bodies, they make industrial ovens, they make incubators, they build them in Aba. Yes. You may not know, but they do. Now, if you visualize any of those products and think about how we can invest in metrology, there's an Institute of Metrology that used to be in Onitsha. I don't know if it's still there. Steel, okay. So if you think about the people who can source the steel or the raw materials and do whatever they need to do to them, to process them, to give it to the person who's going to finish. If you think about the paint expert for instance, who's just making paint, industrial painting for the, the tankers have to be coated externally and internally. That's a part. So every industry has an ecosystem. It just doesn't scale for one man to be the person who's going to source the raw material, mold it or whatever he needs to do to it, do the painting, do the fabrication, put it up, do the marketing, source the finance. How do you see an ecosystem that is viable or a product that is viable, and then you invest in that ecosystem in such a way that is coherent enough for that place to be known as, Aba is known for fabrication. And everything around Aba, and actually it doesn't have to be in Aba, it can be, Aba is probably less than 100 kilometers from all the cities in the southeast.
It's just a metaphor for a business hub.
Absolutely. So everything else can be a Port Harcourt. You can put the things in Port Harcourt so that you can funnel it. That's the thinking that will make us go forward. We got to be courageous about how we grow as a company. We have to, as a country, in terms of our economy.
It's shocking that government is talking about SMEs almost on a daily basis, but not thinking in terms of strategy, in terms of hubs. These days we hear about the tech hub in Yaba and things like that. But the industrial hubs, government just pays lip service to this. Why are we like this?
I don't know. I think there are many ways to answer that, but okay, after we did our Proudly Made in Aba campaign, okay, we went to Nnewi and we did a campaign in 2020 before the lockdown. It was called Invest in Nnewi. That campaign or that activity was supported by the Nnewi Chamber of Commerce. It's supported by Ford Foundation. It was supported by government. The Deputy Governor of Anambra State was there. It was actually February the 6th, 2020. And Kelechi Nwosu, who was then chairman of the investment committee, I think it was General Investment Committee in Anambra, spoke at that place, and a couple of people. What were we trying to do? Essentially, we wanted to put together a team that will help build the ecosystem of Nnewi, because Nnewi is good, but is looking more and more not organized. It needed to be organized around certain areas, especially fabrication, especially auto, and our ultimate, one of the gateways, one of the milestones in our plan was to build a Mecca hub, a laboratory in any of the universities. Because if you're a fabrication place and you're dealing with engineering, you need somewhere where people can go and experiment. But you also need an ecosystem that will put venture capital into it and accelerate it to grow. Because all of the people there, there's a woman, Nene, she makes battery terminal heads and handles. She collates steel items, then she breaks them down into liquid format and formulates what she wants. She was exporting to different parts of West Africa from a small shop where she had like 6-7 women working with her. So those kind of people are doing that. So how do they plug into a larger system? It was a big issue because everybody liked it, but apart from COVID being an issue with it, part of the problem is also collaboration. How do people in the private sector collaborate and have this ecosystem boom that blows up? That is part of the challenge. Government people were there, they talk, but they don't follow up. We also need to challenge our academics because our academics are in another zone altogether.
I don't think those people want to be useful for anything else.
No, I don't.
Degrees.
No, I don't think so.
If you don't think so, when last did you hear a university here announce a breakthrough in any major venture? I am a graduate of University of Nigeria.
Yes.
I felt embarrassed at a time when UNN was advertising one car that was made by students of UNN or whatever, and everybody was drooling over it. And if you look at this thing, this contraption, you understand, it's not something
to drool over.
10-year-old Chinese people would be proud of.
Sure.
So how can our university people just stop awarding degrees and become useful in terms of centers of excellence in research?
It's a good question, but I think they have been influenced by the larger society where people just want to survive one, and I think they are pretty poorly paid and poorly motivated. I think the university dons and the kind of what they're doing is not, it's what we're doing with them, especially the public universities, the amount of money they are paid, their salaries, their remuneration, their motivations, are nothing to get us to where we want to be. So if we really sincerely want them to be better at what they do, we got to motivate them a little bit better, and we have to remove those who are not performing. Now,
can't remove
before
anybody. They are public sector people.
Okay, that's difficult. But okay, so that's one way to look at it. The other thing, though, is that we also need to challenge them to come to the table, because if your university dons, you are supposed to be eggheads. Actually, the university is supposed to solve societal problems.
Yes.
So we've got to be able to challenge them to say, okay, what are you guys bringing to the table? Because they can also earn money. They should be allowed to earn money from the work that they're doing, from their mind.
Yeah, because this is the same university that between 1966, and let me even talk about the Southeast.
Yes.
Between 1966 to 1970, lecturers in engineering produce vehicles, produce a radio transmitter, produce refined fuel.
Sure.
Without the benefit of big refineries, the like of which we know about today, produced weapons.
Yes.
They were lecturers.
Sure.
Are we growing forward? Are we growing backwards? Because I don't know any professor of engineering from the contemporary set that
So some will argue that the Dutch disease, you know what they call the Dutch disease?
Educators.
Okay. The Dutch disease is something, you talk about how money influences culture. Quick and easy money. That because Nigeria started making a lot of money from the petrodollars, we forgot the other areas to develop. That's really the sort of the short form of application of it. That the culture we have now, which is a quick culture, you can actually get into government or get into some place and you get money, has allowed for different parts of the society to wither, especially the academic sector. So merit, thinking, innovation. I did consulting for we did as an agency for one university in Nigeria. I won't mention where it is.
Please don't.
And I said to them, we're going to be 40 or 50. I said to them, so what have you done in those years? And some top person in the university said, well, we've been here. When we started, there were like 1,000 of us. Now there are like 50,000 of us. I said, is that really the achievement? He said, yes, that's the achievement. I said, okay. If you look at how universities are ranked, patents, how many patents have you applied for?
Yes.
Is intellectual property. Of those patents, how many of them have been tested in the real world? There's a book called Startup Nation written by two individuals. They talk about how Jewish, you know that book?
I know that book.
They talk about how Jewish universities all over the world, they are outpacing themselves, or the Jews basically are outpacing themselves with application for patents. So a university is supposed to research a phenomenon, actually, and interpret any phenomenon. I had one rather unsuccessful TED Talk that I did, which I think you should check it out sometime. And in that TED Talk, I was actually advocating, for instance, that you should have a degree on ABBA, because ABBA is a phenomenon, and that you should study it as a full. And I wish I had the time and the wherewithal and the rigor and everything. ABBA is something you can do a full degree on. Why is it parts of it successful? There are many parts of it that are successful. How can we make it a lot more successful? How can we replicate it? And I'm sure that very many other cities or very many other phenomena that is about us. That's what we must challenge the universities to do. We must challenge them to answer some of the questions you're asking me. Why are SMEs not doing as well as they ought to? Why is government support not as good as it should be? Why are some banks or some people who claim to support SME, what are they doing? Every aspect of our life, and every aspect of our industry, our community ought to be studied by the universities. They just need to pick the ones that will contribute to making our lives, even the culture, the so-called withering of culture, the values that we hold there. Those are the challenges we need to pose to the universities.
Another challenge that is important, and I don't know what you think about it, is to NUC, and there are some people who provide regular rankings of Nigerian universities.
Sure.
Are they being ranked by the number of first class and second class upper division that they generate? Are they being ranked by the number of students they push out each year? Are they being ranked by the revenue they generate from fees and commissions and things? Or are they being ranked by the quality and values of the research? I don't know whether you know.
I don't know about the ranking. The ranking that I'm probably aware of is there's a Webomatic rankings or something like that. There are a couple of international rankings that I tend to see about our university. I don't know of any local, I haven't followed any local ranking, but it would be good to ask those questions. Are they being ranked by the number of times they have not gone on strike or the number of times they've gone on strike? So it will be interesting to see the criteria for those rankings. But overall, I think our universities can do far better than they're doing. I think we should challenge them. I went to University of Technology in Imo State, and there was there was a cut of power during an inaugural lecture. The power left. Even this approach to the school the road was bad. So I'm saying you've got civil engineering department. This is where you test your philosophy, you test your theory, your name as a university. So I think there's got to be a challenge. A lot of people think of universities now as a place that is beautiful, where there is, ivory tower basically, but that needs to be debunked.
My experience tells me that students think of university as a way to pass time until they become full adults, and then life will throw anything at them. You just sit down where you are entitled to some allowances every month. You don't have to work, you don't have to think, you don't have to do anything. Just that 4 years will just go, and then you just find yourself outside, and then flying certificates up and down for an employment that doesn't exist.
It's a thought, but it won't be everyone. These days, I try not to generalize. I think there'll be people who want to get a good university education, hoping that it will spark critical thinking in them and for them to find a career. But overall, part of the challenge with NUC is that how relevant is the course of study, especially in my area, mass communication. The questions we ask them, and there's so much, even right now with all these AI things happening, there's so much changing every day. Every day. Every day is an exaggeration, but changing quite rapidly. That without practical teaching from the outside these universities, it'll be difficult for them to catch up.
Let's even talk about differentiation and the SMEs. There appears to be a knowledge gap there.
Sure.
Where those people are there. Yes, they may have labels and have names, but the differentiation strategy, the adoption of intentional marketing communication strategies are lacking. And I think, in my view, from what I've seen, it's also an inhibition to growth.
It is. So there are many parts to it. One part to it is that the marketing communication agencies are not marketing them well enough. We're not marketing SMEs well enough. And part of the reason why we're not marketing them well enough is because we don't think that many of them have viable billings in that sense. So we need to find a way that will allow marketing communication agencies to market them, which there are different ways to look at this. The second thing is that SMEs in Nigeria, all of the SMEs, all of us actually do need education, continuous learning in different areas. So, and I'm sure a couple of the conversations you've had here, you will hear people talk about financial systems, HR systems, processes, how you work in your SME, marketing. There's this erroneous belief that when you've made your product and the product is doing well, then you come and talk to marketing people. Whereas marketing is fundamental. It is fundamental to any product promotion.
From design to
From
planning.
design, from planning, from determining the job to be done, from determining your value proposition. So if you just go to the fundamentals of marketing, then there is another newfangled problem where people are talking about branding and different from marketing, because they have taken some things off the internet where marketing tells them, for instance, that it's about communication. Marketing is not about communication. There are professors of marketing who have defined what marketing is. And the essence of a marketeer is to build brands that are valuable. They provide a value, they provide a proposition, and they provide a way for you to earn money on a profitable basis for a long time. So these fundamentals are things that anyone who wants to start a business ought to know. You can't do a business without marketing. The question is, what kind of marketing do you need? You need to have advisory. You might need to buy the talent. You might need to borrow the talent. You might need to build it. You must have it at the core of what you're doing to be able to survive. So SMEs miss that window a lot of the time, because even the propositions they come up with are not market relevant. Sometimes.
Yeah. This question became important because we know the story, and I will mention names because for whoever cares, I want everybody to learn from what we're doing in C-Suite Café.
Sure.
The problem Erisco Bumpet had was not just a problem of product quality assurance. It was a problem of marketing, perception management, crisis management, which he handled himself. Roughly, and it created a monster of a problem that became the talk point for radio shows and even beer parlors. How can we get people like this that are so highly opinionated about their achievements, they've amassed billions and millions in salesmanship, to bend to professionals like you? Because in the end, he also hired people who are mostly Facebook influencers or whatever they call themselves, to drive it. And rather than solve the problem, they were digging him deeper. They
were fighting fire with fire.
Yes.
I wish I had the answer to that, because that's a space that our SME shop has been trying to knock on and open. There is a tendency for very many entrepreneurs who have done well to think that marketing can be farmed out to people who don't understand it. That's the tendency. And sometimes when you talk to them from their position, they've already taken a position that, you guys, we'll talk to you later. So I think it's a fundamental mistake. I think it's a basic mistake for many people not to have. You don't need to retain a marketing advertising agency. But you have to retain marketing talent to advise you. It's like you're starting a business without legal. Think about it. If you start even a small business and you don't have legal advice, you don't have to have a lawyer working for you.
Yes.
How are you going to do it without legal? You have to register. You have to have company secretary. You've got to have somebody advise you on the grounds of legal. If you don't do that, you will run into problem. You may get away with it for a short while, but you will have problems. So why would you start a business without marketing advisory? You've got to be thinking, what do I need in this business? So that would be my primary advice. And there are ways to minimize the costs that you have. There are ways to make sure that you get the right talent working for you.
I think at this point, you are an expert. You are very deeply knowledgeable about marketing.
Sure.
But out there, some of these are people mistake salesmanship for marketing.
Sure.
I think for the benefit of those who mix them up, can you tell them where salesmanship stops and marketing begins, or where marketing stops and sales begins in the production value chain process?
So they are related. Okay, so the primarily marketing is about determining value and making sure that that famous definition by by Kotler. You talk about the value that you're bringing out based on the product that's fulfilling a particular need profitably for you. So, and you remember everybody goes to the 4 P's of marketing, you know, the product, the place,
promotion.
absolutely. All of those things are important. But remember that sales is also very important. Actually, sales shouldn't be a dirty word in marketing at all. Sometimes people mistake it because ultimately you have to convert. Like they say now, if you do lead generation, you have to convert. You have to get action. Even the work in advertising, we talk about IDA. You remember awareness, interest, desire, action. Without action, there's no fulfillment. It's an abortion. So at the end of that whole point for marketing is for you to be able to do sales for the idea, for the product. Somebody must buy it.
Yes.
So sales is really to get value across for your idea or for your product in real terms. So marketing actually allows you to sell. That's the simple way to look at it. It's a very simple thing. If you don't do proper marketing, which means your product is not well tuned to the people you're looking at, the distribution, retail, your go-to-market, where you're going to land it is not tuned to the people you want to buy. The promotion is not talking to them with a clear message that says, look at me, I'm here, come and get me. Then you miss the opportunity to get value. Value is money. At the end of the day, when you give me one
value
naira.
Is money, value is utility for the person
absolutely,
who is having
absolutely. So it's an exchange of value. So the whole work about marketing is actually to prepare to make sure that you get value, but on a regular basis with a message, with they call it storytelling that allows that value to continue. And that's why marketing must keep working, because sometimes the people who are buying might change. Sometimes they don't longer see value in your product. That's why brands relaunch. You go back and say, oh, I want to relaunch, I want to do, because you want to continue to give value so that you can do revenue. So ultimately, they are related. They plug into each other.
Capital is often blamed as one of the challenges inhibiting SME's growth in an environment like Nigeria.
Sure.
Is this absolutely true? If it is, what could the system do? I'm talking about government, I'm talking about financial institutions, to make sure that the cycle, the multiplier value of money is fixed into the pulley, like you rightly mentioned at that time, to the point where at every stop, at every sprocket, there is value creation.
So I was watching a video and someone said one of the reasons why companies from America do well is because they have access to capital. But the other point is that they have talented people who are passionate. So I don't think capital is the only element you need for a business to be successful. You need people. You need knowledge. It's also a mistake for every entrepreneur to say, I don't have money, I don't have access to capital. Very many countries, very many people who start a business don't have money when they start. You shoestring it. And then as you grow, you get more people believing in you. We, however, need to improve our access to capital, no matter the way you look at it, because I don't think we have a good pool of venture capital in our country. If you go back to the banking system, I don't know what you know about them, but I don't know how many banks have a venture fund. I don't know. Venture capital, or have set up systems where they can venture. You know how it's venture capital is that you put money on 10 businesses, 3 or 4 will bomb, 2 will middle, 2 will be a star. You recover your money, but it's a risk. So the risk appetite of our banks and our financial institution is limited. It's limited because our credit system is warped. Our credit delivery system is warped. And the banks claim that because they have short-term funds, they cannot match long-term expectations. Then the question I often ask is, who is sitting in the bankers committee? Well, you guys are the ones sitting there. So that's a larger conversation.
Yeah, no, it's a larger conversation, but we need
and I don't know about the banks.
We need to touch it a little because it has come up on this show a couple of times where we see banks these days it's become fashionable for them to declare profits in billions of naira. the market is looking for those funds.
Sure.
The billions is going to shareholders in quotes.
Sure.
Why are they shying away from taking part of those billions and investing in ventures, including and not limited to the owners of the banks? Even if they don't do it institutionally, what stops those who are harvesting those billions, most probably from doing nothing?
So in fairness, many of them are investing their private money into ventures that concern them. I mean, if you look at the Tony Elumelu Foundation, for instance, you see what they've done. He's put money in the foundation where they're giving money, hard currency to people. Jimovi, a couple of them have invested, but we need a proper supportive institutional framework for venture capital. You need to have accelerator funds, private equity capital.
Yes.
So if you don't have a structured way of getting those access to capital, we are not going to spur innovation. So if you ask me, if I were a minister, for instance, in certain ministries, what I'll do is I'll drive innovation. I'll have tests for people to have innovation, but I also find people who have capital to venture into those things. Then you begin to look for PE. There are a couple of venture capital, but it's not an established venture capital system in our market. If I want to do a film now, and I'm pitching, very often the pitches we are going, it's only recently that the Ministry of Arts and creativity or so has come up with a creative fund. BOI used to have some creative fund where, I don't know how many people have benefited from those funds. Every segment actually should have opportunity for people who have ideas to connect with people who have money. And it doesn't have to be government money. It will come from the banking system. So the banks can give you the excuses of not mismatch of long-term and short-term funds. They can give you the excuses that their capital reserve adequacy ratio has been taken up, which is the government is always trying to mop up and keep how those numbers, keep them up. They can give you all of those various excuses that people are not coming up with ideas that are bankable. But my view is that their risk appetite for people who are not politically exposed is low. I think that when we look at foreign exchange,
government give politicians money.
Yes.
If you are in
banks,
if you are in a big political party,
yes,
they actually give loan to candidates to contest elections.
Absolutely. So banks give loans to people who are politically exposed, and they're also making money from charges and from FX. You used to make a lot of money off FX. It would be interesting to diagnose the top banks and see where their income is coming from. How much of it is coming from their loan book? It will be interesting to do that analysis. If you did that analysis, you will be, I don't have the numbers, but I know someone who may have done it. I don't think a lot of the money they're making is coming from the loans they give. Certainly not.
Let's move away to the global space.
Okay.
There's a lot of change that is happening with Donald Trump and the rest of the global market. The other day, he banned 12 countries from getting visas into their environment. What is the real implication of this? A lot of the things he's doing in taxes, in immigration, for a country like Nigeria. Especially given the background that we're very strong trade partners with the US in the past.
We are, but the minister came out to say that our export to them was limited. Our exposure to them was, 10%? I don't know I can't remember the number now accurately. I think they were buying our oil. They're no longer buying a lot of our oil. I think our oil is going to the east, China, India, and those places. So in that sense, they're not such a big trade partner. We used to have AGOA, the export, the AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity Act, which I think the man has also, demolished. I don't know if Nigeria is still there. But I think that Trump's I don't know the word to use now. They say he's erratic, if you must be, an impulsive use of tariffs to try to reduce his deficit. I think it's a bit of a blessing in disguise. Not a bit, a lot. we must ask ourselves those questions of how does Nigeria work? How can we bring back agency into ourselves? Why do we need to rely on the United Nations and the United States to support our anti-AIDS program? Why do we need to rely on people from outside to do everything for us? I'm a firm believer that we've been given agency by God and that we need to own the agency. Why did we need to wait for vaccines at COVID time when Nigeria set up an Institute of Virology many years ago to do that research? Why are we doing all of that? So I think Trump's protectionism, that's what it is, should be a wake-up call for us to say, hey, wait a minute, who are we? What can we do for ourselves? What should we export? And we've got Africa. We have the African Free Trade Agreement that in theory should allow for expanded trade within Africa in the next few years. How are we girding our loins? How are we preparing for that? Are we ready to face the problems that are coming from all of that?
That's a question that I'm going to throw back to you. The Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Yes.
Is Nigeria ready? Given our size, given I think our biggest asset that we are trading on is potential.
Sure.
Given our potential for this and that, human capital, potential.
We're not ready.
They are not bankable. They are not tradable commodities.
They're not tradable, but they are potential. They're assets. The size of our market is an asset. It's also an asset because we've got talent. We actually part of, and I know the president said so recently. Part of our biggest asset is the talent we have. We've got quite an educated middle class or educated work class. We may not be all skilled. I mean, compared to other parts of Africa in particular. So we should be ready. We're not ready yet, but we could be. We should work hard to be ready. There's an industry study group. There's an African Free Trade study group under the ministry. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they're connected to the SME. For instance, you would expect that the industry study group should be informing us, working with Manufacturers Association, working with the tech groups, working with the sports groups, working with different parts to say, what should we specialize in and what can we do to be able to optimize the Africa Free Trade Agreement? Those are the conversations that we should be having, not worrying about America.
Now, these are conversations that we should be having.
Yes.
But we are front-loading our talent.
Sure.
As bankable things we are taking to Africa. You move out a lot.
Sure.
Have you gone to even as nearby to us as Ghana?
Sure.
And gauge what they think of Nigerians? The xenophobia in South Africa is clear and present.
Yeah.
Go anywhere across the continent. And I doubt if those are our talents, which we take there and change things, are not enough. Because it's giving negative vibes about us. Why? I mean, how can we go into other areas that are tradable?
So if you have to take a very nuanced view of it. There's a reason why you have had one or two unicorns in the tech space come out of Nigeria. There's a reason why in the tech space, for instance, Nigeria is very well regarded across Africa in terms of what we've done around that whole techpreneur space. There's a reason why even in our manufacturing, some companies were able to burst here until things became a little bit tough and export to other parts of Africa. There's a reason why we used to have the technical aid corps that was going around with doctors, nurses, teachers all over Africa. So we do have a lot of the talent. Some of them have gone to Canada and UK and Australia and all that, but we have numbers, and those numbers suggest that we have a potential to do things in our country, but in different parts of Africa. So yes, I understand what you talk about, that some people may not but have a view of Nigeria, but it's also not a country view in most cases. Sometimes it's a view of the struggling, like the Ghanaian trader is saying, Nigerian traders, you guys are chopping our money. You know, this kind of squabbles that you
Yes.
have that are squabbles for survival. And in South Africa, it might be the same. It might be, a lot of it is, and I've heard, a lot of it is, oh, you guys are taking our businesses, you're taking our women. You know, so there's a lot of that petty jealousy. And when people are hungry, and there's a lot of inequity in South Africa in terms of incomes. So when you have these income inequities, people tend to, they don't go to the person who has caused the inequity or the inequality. They go to the man by his side who they can catch, and that happens. So we've got to wait, again, is what's studied. What is the extent of our national character? How much of it is a disadvantage, and how much of it is an advantage? That's what you must ask. So there are different sectors, there are different opportunities. The African Free Trade Study Group ought to look at the different ways and say which ones are easy for us to capitalize upon. There ought to be free movement of goods, free movement of persons in terms of that whole thing. Is aviation an opportunity? What are the opportunities that exist? I don't know if there's been a cordial. So government people are always doing study groups, but they don't share. We need to know what study groups have come up with.
Let's come back home.
Yes, please.
What is the current state of advertising
in Nigeria? I say it's a little bit. It's comsi. It's got problems, but it also has opportunities. Problems because we have a rather shallow market. If you don't have that many brands who are owned here and who originate from here, who are ambitious and who are doing things, it means that you do not have enough revenue to make in terms of the share of market. It becomes a little bit difficult for agencies to get share of the market. And if you look at Porter's 5 forces, part of the other thing is it's now become easier for anybody to waltz into the industry and claim to be an expert. But that's the problem. But the opportunity is that we can't but grow as a country. We must grow. We must therefore find where is the growth going to come from. It's not going to come from the normal places. It may not come from the industries that we know. It might come from the new industries. It might come from the tech.
Optimistic.
Always optimistic. Nigeria is
too optimistic.
Always optimistic. Nigeria is a choice. Why wouldn't I be optimistic? So we must pull back as experts and ask ourselves, what do? We offer support. We create brands to be able to do things. Sometimes we ought to create those brands for ourselves, by ourselves, working with people. That's why we go into the SME space, for instance. So optimism is a choice. In every situation, even when you have difficulties, it's for people to find the way to provide. And communication and the work we do, the creativity we bring to the table is pertinent across all industries. Everybody needs it, but we just need to make sure that we have viability. So if Africa Free Trade Agreement works, it's an advantage to us. If we grow the SME industry, it is an advantage to us. All of the opportunities for growth is an advantage to us, even politics.
So where are we seeing
growth?
TBWA, the growth curves for them. In which sector, in which area?
TBWA, we will always, in recent times, what we are pushing is to understand how data analytics, the technology is influencing our business. So for instance, we have people who are looking at creative technology, that space, that whole virtual reality, augmented reality. AI is the one that everybody is screaming about. Blockchain, Internet of Things. How do those areas affect, improve, allow us to grow in our business? That's one part. The other part we're looking at, like I've said to you before, is our own products. And it's not new. We've always had our own products. We just need to put a lot more emphasis on it. We have a content company that's made 2 feature films. One of them will be released later this year. We have a product and platform that talks about SME Shop, which is our SME view of the world. In fact, we're planning something really big with it. We have ONDI, which is a niche there, the government firm that's endorsed that project. It's a build-a-thon under the SME Shop platform. We have a food platform called Oririndo, which is about food of life, which has been going on. We've had 2-3 big events with them, but it's an online thing. So there are a couple of other products that must be done. That's what we must do. There are opportunities for growth. We shouldn't let them go past us while we're waiting for America or whoever to release us. We shouldn't be doing that. We have opportunities here. We just must mind those opportunities.
I'm sure you have heard him in full. When I started off and said he is heavily loaded, I wasn't joking. He's somebody I had known in the past, and he's somebody that I respect what he has in his brain and how he has been able to develop that into enviable standards. Thank you so much. As we round off today's show, Kelechi Nwosu has enriched the dialogue. He has infused new narratives in the discussion space about Nigeria, about SMEs, and about finance. These are the things we want to be doing so that as he is growing, people who are going to continue to energize this economy will continue to grow, riding on his vast ocean of knowledge. We are coming to an end to this show, but we will remain with you. Next time, we will make sure that we find another Nigerian as cerebral as him to bring to you and to share his wealth of knowledge with you and with everybody who is interested in growing intellectually. Thank you for being with us. And then thank you for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure.
And
anytime.
It is goodbye for now. You are not just one of our faculty here. You have been a great resource. We want you back. We didn't want today to end, but for the constraints of time, we deeply appreciate you. More importantly, I need to be honest, and the world must know this. You came through for C-Suite Café when we were having challenges of location, and you gave us a studio to set up and do this. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
For who you are, and we'll make sure that we come back to you when we need
no problem at all. It's been a pleasure.
Intelligent conversations.
No problem at all.
Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. My name is Kelechi Nwosu. I'm CEO of TBWA Concept. I enjoyed the conversation. I'd love to be back. I think it was an exciting conversation. I don't think I wanted it to end. I think we need to push these conversations. We need to challenge ourselves. We need to challenge people around us. We need to challenge our country. I think it's important that many of us begin to reaffirm our belief about what can make this country better. So I like the work CCT is doing. Thanks again for having me and John. It's been a pleasure, and anytime. Thank you very much.